SiriusXM and get the radio you love coast to coast. Call 844-711-8800 or go to SiriusXM.com to activate your radio now.
There's a place where Smokey.
And there we go. And right there.
Reporting a retrieval of many of these objects, most of which were not, of course, of alien manufacture. Rogers was adamant that there were several craft intact and that the bodies of the pilots were recovered. Unfortunately, and the one thing that we need to remember is that he said he had not seen these things himself, but was telling us what others he respected had told him. He said that there were documents, but those were not available at the moment. I did talk to Daniel Sheehan, a lawyer who consulted for a time with the Carter administration, who said that he too had seen photographs of downed craft with American military personnel on this crash site. And that interview was reported in UFOs in the Deep State. I mention those two books because my research tends to validate some of what Crash said. But we're in the same place without the documents or photographs of the debris that we have been for decades. And I've talked to people who claimed insider status, but who were another guy kind of confirming this stuff. He talked about the U.S. government being in possession of 12 craft, but he refused to answer questions or dodge questions about whether there were pilots recovered. But anyhow, this is not the first time that someone has suggested evidence of a secret government program to gain some attention by the mainstream media. However, in the past, those claims have been proven to be false, and there's some of the documentation that was given with that has been discredited by members of the UFO committee. Or in other words, I'm cautious about this and would like to see some evidence before I climb out on that limb. And there is a much more detailed analysis of this on my blog. But as an aside, I was looking at sightings of triangular-shaped craft this week in Littleton, Canada, Minnesota. Kept wanting to say New Mexico there for some reason.
I bet you're thinking of Roswell, that's why.
Yeah, there you go. On May 14th of this year, the witness saw a very bright object that he at first thought was an airplane. He described a triangular object very high. He said that he thought it was flying higher than aircraft, though an object in the sky without any sort of reference for comparison makes it difficult to accurately estimate size and altitude. He said he turned to tell his wife about the UFO, and when he looked back, it had vanished, and he did not take any photographs. On May 12th of this year, the witness in Bucksport, Maine, said that he saw a triangular-shaped UFO that was making a soft engine noise as it flew about 75 feet up in the air. It was moving slowly and was dark. He said he couldn't see the object, but did see the lights. One was flashing, and all of them were white. And he saw it as it flew over part of Main Street and disappeared behind some trees. And that's what we have for tonight, George.
All right, my friend, we'll talk to you next week with your incredible reports. In a moment, New York Times best-selling author Jay Margolis is back with us. His latest work, My Meryl, Marilyn Monroe, Ronald Reagan, Hollywood, and Me. He's next on Coast to Coast. The past few years have proven that unexpected events can strike at any time, and when they do, the food and daily nutrition you need isn't always there. That's why you need Nutrient Survival. These delicious chef-made recipes are packed with 6 times more nutrients than other emergency foods, and it's patented with virtually the same level of elite nutrition that's required for special op forces to help you stay strong, alert, and satisfied when you need it most. It's loaded with 40 essential nutrients and made from real ingredients right here in America. Try Nutrient Survival today. I have their emergency food kit, and it's worth every penny. And today, my listeners can save 15% off their entire order, plus get a free variety sampler with any purchase, and free shipping inside the continental U.S. for orders over $200. Nutrient Survival is an American veteran-owned and operated company, which I fully support. Head to Nutrient Survival, use promo code NORI at checkout for this deal. NutrientSurvival.com, promo code NORI, and get prepared. based on the thrilling sci-fi masterpieces by Marvin Sunderland. Acclaimed comic creator Andy Fish and his team are bringing that sense of wonder and thrills in straight-out action adventures like those great old comic book stories you remember in their line of titles. iWagon, Haunted Planet, Space Rangers, codename Atom Bomb, Tales of Singularity, and the kid-oriented Waggett Jr. Join them at iWaggett.com. That's iWaggett.com.
Want to improve your marksmanship while saving ammo and saving money? Get better faster with the Mantis X Dry Fire Training System.
It's time to shoot tighter groups.
The Mantis X Dry Fire Training System.
Score 97, bang on the money.
The Mantis X is a smart sensor that fits any weapon with a rail or adapter, pairing to your smartphone or tablet. Analyzes your shooting and tells you how to improve. 94% of shooters improve after just 20 minutes.
X.
Go to MantisX.com.
MantisX.com.
A kiss of the hand may be quite continental, but diamonds are a girl's best friend. A kiss may be grand, but it won't pay the rental on your humble flat, or help you at the automat. Men grow cold as girls grow old, and we all lose our charms in the end. But square cut or pear shape, these rocks don't lose their shape. Diamonds are a girl's best friend.
Marilyn Monroe, born Nomer Jean Mortensen on June 1st, 1926. She died August 4th, 1962. Was an American actress, model, and singer, known for playing comic blonde bombshell characters. She became one of the most popular symbols of the 1950s and 60s. She was a top-billed actress for a decade. Her films then grossed $200 million, which is equivalent today of $2 billion by the time of her death in 1962. Truly remarkable. Jay Margolis back with us, New York Times best-selling author. He was last with me 8 years ago when we talked about his book, The Murder of Marilyn Monroe, Case Closed. His latest work is called My Meryl, Marilyn Monroe, Ronald Reagan, Hollywood, and Me. And Jay, the me is Terry Carter, isn't it?
That's correct. It's a woman and it's not a man. Sometimes people think that Terry is a guy. It's a woman.
Well, first of all, welcome back to the program. We missed you.
Back. I missed you too, man. Great show.
Got to keep you up a little bit more and get you on the show. Tell us a little bit about Terry and her relationship with Marilyn Monroe.
Okay, but basically it all started when Terry was 6 years old, and her father had brought home Marilyn Monroe, who was 21, and her father was 32 at the time, and Columbia Pictures in 1948 had said to Fred, hey, we need someone to teach this woman how to sing. You know, so Fred was a vocal coach, and very quickly improved Marilyn's singing voice, so she sounded very lovely for the songs that she sang for Ladies of the Chorus in 1948.
That's amazing. And the forward to your book is a friend of ours, Michael Reagan, the son of the late President Ronald Reagan.
That's correct, and I'll tell you about that too. When Terry was 11, her father, Fred, married Jane Wyman, who had been recently divorced from Ronald Reagan, so Michael and Maureen Reagan became Terry's stepbrother and stepsister.
And Jane Wyman was Michael Reagan's true mother.
Yes, exactly. You know, and that it was adopted within like less than weeks, I believe, of his birth.
Jay, tell me your interest in Marilyn Monroe. This is a subject that you will not let go.
I wanted to do something a little bit different with Terry's book, which is my third book on Marilyn. I wanted to go into who was Marilyn Monroe. I mean, people say, oh, she's the dumb blonde. But then Marilyn made a quote in a statement. She says, well, it's kind of silly if people thought you were what you were in the movies, you know, because I was just acting. I was just playing the tramp in Niagara. People shouldn't think that I'm a tramp in real life, you know. I mean, it was, this is what she's going up against, because she didn't want to keep making these so-called, what she referred to as dumb blonde movies. And so she formed her own production company with Milton H. Green, who was a famous photographer. And they did Bus Stop First, where she had this Ozark accent, and she's working along Don Murray. I talked to him, and he said her performance was so great in that movie, she should have gotten an Oscar, maybe an Oscar nomination, and then obviously win the Oscar her director, Joshua Logan, thought the same thing. But then the second movie they made for the production company was The Prince and the Showgirl. She's working with Laurence Olivier, and he said that she gave him hell during that movie. But when he saw the finished product, he was nothing but praise for Marilyn.
I got a kick out of Michael Reagan's foreword in the book because he first got influenced by Marilyn Monroe when he was 7 years old. When he saw her on a silver tray in her little pinup look on a little picture of her, he went crazy.
Yeah, so it was at Rooster's jewelry store, and it was funny because, you know, he says to Maureen, let's get this for Mom for her birthday, and Maureen looks over and she says, come on, Michael, we can't get that for Mom, we got to pick something else. So they end up getting the sugar bowl and wrapping it up as a gift to the house. And that very night, you know, Michael Reagan is opening the door to see all the guests inside. Marilyn Monroe comes in and he's like, his jaw's on the ground, he can't speak. And she says, hi, how are you guys? And eventually Michael says, I'm fine, come on in, you know. And people at his church, they say, when did you know there was a God? And he said, when Marilyn Monroe was on my doorstep.
I love it. That's when you were doing research years ago on Marilyn Monroe,
yes.
What did you think of the case that she died of an overdose?
Absolutely false. In fact, Dr. Sidney Weinberg took an independent look. He was from Suffolk County, New York, very famous coroner, and he took an independent look, and he determined that there was no way that she could have swallowed the drugs that killed her. He looked at the toxicology report that, you know, came in, and it said that she had enough drugs in her blood to kill 3 people. I mean, she had the equivalent of 47 Nebutals and 17 chlorhydrates, not in her stomach, but in her blood. And so what that means is that she was either injected or she was also given a drug enema. And I say drug enema because Peter Lawford made a curious statement to his third wife, Deborah Gould. And she said, how did Marilyn die? And he said, oh, she took her last big enema. So they're aware of this purplish discoloration of Marilyn's colon. It doesn't just turn purple when she dies. The then Deputy District Attorney, John Miner, who oversaw the autopsy was Dr. Thomas Noguchi, who was the coroner in that case, who did the autopsy. John Miner said Marilyn was murdered with the help of a drug enema, and that noxious substance of the drugs, in contact with her colon, would turn it purple. And so he believed with the help of an enema that she was murdered. But in my New York Times best-selling book, The Murder of Marilyn Monroe, Case Closed, I argue that she was given an enema to knock her out, and then when the ambulance arrived, she was finished off with a needle to the heart, and then she died.
And I guess you could tie in somehow the Dorothy Kilgallen case. Mark Shaw, you know Mark.
I do not know him, but I'm aware of him. In fact, we have the same agent, Frank Wyman.
He's a good guy.
But I've seen his work. And there is this CIA document that's dated one day before Marilyn died, August 3rd, 1962, and it was signed off by James Angleton, the CIA director. And he basically noted in here, it said that Marilyn kept calling Robert Kennedy and John Kennedy and was, you know, being ignored because they cut her off. They didn't want to see her anymore. She's a big threat. She's threatening to go public. And she would tell all, as the document says. She knew about the bases in Cuba and the president's secret plot to kill Castro, and Marilyn referred to her red diary as the Diary of Secrets, and she threatened what the newspapers would have to say about such disclosures. And I know that this diary exists because I interviewed Detective Mike Rothmiller of the Los Angeles Police Department.
Great investigator.
Yes, you probably interviewed him before, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Organized Crime Intelligence Division, he had these secret file rooms that were started by Chief Parker, who also had this gangster squad. And so in 1978, he saw that the whole diary of Marilyn's was photographed. Each page was photographed. So he looked at those notes, and he took down some interesting things. He noticed that she referred to Fidel Castro as Fidel C. You know, she gave him a nickname.
Yeah.
And so I said, is all this stuff accurate? Is that what you told Donald Wolf, that you saw the diary? And he says, yep, everything I told Donald Wolf is true, that she did have an affair with Robert Kennedy, according to her diary, that she did have an affair with John F. Kennedy. In fact, John Danoff, who was bugging Marilyn's house at the request of Fred Otash, said that, see, a lot of people say that it went from John Kennedy to Bobby Kennedy, but John Danoff said that sometimes it would go back to John Kennedy and then back to Bobby. So she wouldn't have a threesome with them, but she would switch back and forth. You know, it wouldn't be like just, okay, we're going for John, then never again, then with the Bobby. So there would be some switching around.
Jay, did you ever hear any reports that Marilyn Monroe knew something about UFOs from John Kennedy and was going to go public with that? I've heard this rumor for years. I'm wondering if you came across anything that would back that up.
It is true. Kilgallen was having a discussion with this, this one man. His name was Rothberg. It was Henry Rothberg. And basically, they were having this conversation that John Kennedy, during pillow talk, may have slipped out that, he was aware of alien spaceships that had crashed out, bodies had been discovered, and they knew about bodies that were dead that crashed. And it wasn't Roswell, but it was, after that.
There was a case in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. They were all over the place.
Oh, and did you hear the recent reports? It has since to be confirmed, but Newsweek has already reported on it. I found interesting today, there was this family in Las Vegas. The Las Vegas Police Department had 2 body cameras that
captured the videos.
Yeah, it showed the green lights.
Yeah, we've got that story on Coast to Coast right now.
Oh, yeah, and did you hear about the actual family members that released the video talking about it, and they actually produced a doorbell, camera that showed a crash and went...
Amazing. Stay with us, Jay. We're going to take a short break. We'll come back and talk about the book, My Meryl, M-A-R-I-L, Marilyn Monroe, Ronald Reagan, Hollywood, and Me.
The free Coast Zone email newsletter is sent out 6 days a week and is a great way to keep up on all things Coast. With detailed program recaps, the fascinating Today in Strangeness listing, upcoming guest info, and weekly free audio clips, it's a must-have for Coast fans. Look for the free sign-up on the coasttocoastam.com homepage. Coast to Coast AM.
Now, we've been talking about 100 years of paranormal study, but things are still in flux. When are we ever going to get the answers we really want?
I got to be honest with you, George. I think we really are close. Here in the United States, the vast majority of the population is not going to believe in UFOs until we have something on radar. Well, the fact is, not only do we have something on radar, but we have Navy cockpit videos, among other things, that have been validated by the Department of Defense.
What do you think is changing the perception? Is it obvious that's why they have to come forward with this information now?
The fact is, no serious person can say UFOs don't exist. I mean, that position does not exist anymore. The answers may be very elusive, but the existence and the evidence is as plain as any we've got. And it's an exciting time to be alive. We know that life is not exclusive to Earth, and that's an extraordinary thing.
How do I know where America's 5 best zoos are located? Well, a book designed for travelers with the title America's Best Zoos tells me so. I'm Rudy Max with today's Travel Minute from Rudy Max's World. Here's a strange fact. People generally only visit zoos in their hometowns. They'll hit the road to visit cemeteries, shopping malls, museums, but not zoos. So authors Alan Nyhus and John Wassner set out to change that by writing a book, America's Best Zoos, that describes about 200 U.S. zoos. And a guy who grew up wanting to be a zookeeper, Newt Gingrich, wrote the foreword. Anyway, I asked Alan to pick his favorite 5 zoos. He chose the Bronx Zoo for its diverse collection of 4,000 animals, Omaha's Henry Durley Zoo for its huge indoor rainforest, Disney's 500-acre Animal Kingdom near Orlando, and the Pittsburgh Zoo for its aquarium. Oh, let's not forget the San Diego Zoo's Wild Animal Park. Some zoos are free. Disney tops the list at more than $70 for adult admission. Don't limit your zoo visits to your hometown. Look around. It's a jungle out there. Info and more at rudymaxa.com.
Leave the lights on for this Coast to Coast AM.
Happy Friday, everyone. I'm George Norrie, away on assignment doing Beyond Belief television programs, but filling in for me is Professor Ian Punnett with his guests, and later on, those Friday night into Saturday morning calls on Coast to Coast AM.
And remember to lock the door, too, when Coast to Coast AM is on. Get a new view of the world with Coast to Coast AM.
In terms of paranormal activity, do you think it's increasing?
Yes, more and more people are aware of it, so therefore they're even noticing it, because hunts are scary. But some people, they just want to know there's something out there other than what they see on